Welcome back, Daisy Cakes! Today we're going to be looking at the 1965 Hugo Awards. Why? Because I am Daisy Ex Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. If you haven't seen this series before, this is where I look at the Hugos from days gone by and look at all the nominees for 1 year and pick one book based on the blurb, not necessarily the book that won, but the book that strikes my fancy because I want to find a new author or a new book that I haven't heard of or read before. So let's get started by going over all the nominees of the 1965 Hugos. I'll tell you who won, and then we'll read the blurb and make a decision. For the 1965 Hugo Awards, the nominees are Davy by Edgar Pangborn, The Planet Buyer, also known as The Boy Who Bought Old Earth by Cordwainer Smith, The Wanderer by Fritz, Leiber, and The Whole Man by John Brunner. And the winner is The Wanderer by Fritz Leiber. Now, I'm a big fan of Fritz Leiber, so I'm happy that he won with The Wanderer. I don't believe I've read this one. Let me go ahead and read the blurb and find out. All eyes were watching the eclipse of the moon when The Wanderer, a huge, garishly colored, artificial world, emerged. Only a few scientists even suspected its presence, and then, suddenly and silently, it arrived, dwarfing and threatening the moon and wreaking havoc on Earth's tides and weather. Though the Wanderer is stopping in the solar system only to refuel, its mere presence is catastrophic. A tense, thrilling, and towering achievement, winner of the Hugo Award for Best Novel of the Year. Okay, I don't think I've read The Wanderer. I've read more fantasy and horror, I guess, by Fritz Leiber than I have science fiction. And this sounds like an artificial world bigger than the moon, the Death Star. I don't know, but it is garishly colored and traveling to refuel in Earth's solar system. I wonder what it uses as fuel. I'm curious about this one. This sounds interesting. Next up is Davy by Edgar Pangborn. I remember having a discussion about this one in my live stream with Lynette, who said this is one of her favorite books. And I couldn't remember whether or not I had read it, but I did recognize the cover. Not the cover from Wikipedia, but I'll find the cover and I'll put it up here. And I remember liking that cover, but I can't remember actually reading this book. Let's go ahead and read the blurb. Davy is set in the far future of our world, in the 4th century after the collapse of what we described as the 20th century civilization. In a land turned upside down and backwards by the results of scientific unwisdom, Davy and his fellow ramblers are carefree outcasts whose body, joyous adventures among the dead ashes of old-time culture make a novel which has been hailed as a frightening, ribald, poignant look at the imaginary future. As the chilling and fascinating book, as superb entertainment, unique, as so unusual as to make it both refreshing and thought-provoking. Okay, it's kind of funny looking at a book about the collapse of the 20th century civilization when we're in the 21st century. So I guess it's kind of dated. I'm getting like hippie vibes from this, and I am kind of interested in this one. I don't know if I'm into post-apocalyptic stories right now, but this one I think may be a little fresher than most. Okay, I had to do a little bit of research into The Planet Buyer because apparently This is now combined with another novella to make a novel called Norstrilia, which I have already read. And together, I guess they're called The Instrumentality of Mankind. But this is a very, very wild story. I'm not going to pick it for this game because I've read it, but I want to go ahead and read you the blurb. Rod McMahon, the 151st, farms Stroon, the immortality drug, and is the last scion of one of the oldest and most honorable families on Norstrilia, only source of Stroon. But he's also a telepathic cripple and faces the ever-present risk of being culled under the government's draconian population laws. To protect himself, he uses his not strictly legal computer to play the market and amass an unimaginable fortune. But after he survives an assassination attempt, McMahon discovers that having enough money to literally buy the earth is no good if you're too dead to spend it. Now, if you don't know, Norstrilia is the combination of Northern Australia. Someone, I guess, buys this planet that has the immortality drug, and they recreate that culture with some unexpected results. Highly recommend this one, not picking it for this game. Moving on to The Whole Man by John Brunner. And I recognize the name John Brunner. I don't believe I've read this story. Let's go ahead and read the blurb. Gerald Howson didn't look powerful. His body was deformed at birth, leaving him with a face so ugly people didn't want to look at him, and crippled legs that would never let him be as other men. But his mind was 1 in a billion, gifted with the ability to send and receive thoughts more powerfully than any other person on the face of the globe. At first, Howson thought his peculiar ability was odd, and then he thought he might be able to get a little extra money by snooping on people. But when his ability finally was discovered by others, he became so powerful that he could use his gift to heal the minds of those who suffered from terrible emotional or psychological trauma. Or he could withdraw into a phantasmagoric wonderland of psychic imagining, never to emerge into the real world of human experience again. Whichever decision he made, his life and the lives of countless others would never be the same again. The Whole Man is one of the most brilliantly original and colorfully told adventures of inner space ever written. Hugo Award winner John Brunner makes utterly real a fantastic concept that most writers can't even write about. Okay, I think it's interesting. It's another book about telepaths. As you may or may not know, the very influential editor John Campbell, who was not only a great editor, but also a great racist, but he influenced what people wrote. And since he had an affinity for novels about psychic powers, we see a lot of them during this time period. And I'm curious that this one has a being character who is ugly. That's kind of an interesting little aspect of a main character you don't see very often. I'm not sure I'm in the mood for this book, however. We only have 4 books to choose from. And of these 4, I've read Norstrilia, so I've read The Planet Buyers, which is the first half for Norstrilia. I've read Fritz Leiber before. John Brunner sounds familiar. I'm not sure if I've read him or not, but I'm not sure about this book. It doesn't sound that exciting to me at this time. And that leaves Edgar Pangborn's Davy, which I'm going to pick for this TBR. Now, again, there is a chance that I could have read this before, but if so, I don't really have any memory of it. And this definitely feels as though it's a snapshot of a certain time period. since it was written in 1965, before the Summer of Love, I am kind of curious if this is one of those precursors to sort of the hippie movement or flower child movement. We'll see. What about you? What book or books would you have picked from these nominees? Or have you read them already? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Next time I'll be doing a review of Davy by Edgar Pangborn, so stay tuned for that. Until then, may all the books you read be